Hi everybody, welcome back. So this is now almost 7 weeks since we arrived in Australia. I didn't film one of these videos last week, and the reason for that is mainly down to the fact that I started work last week. So I've been quite busy, as you can imagine. I'm working full time and I am a shift worker, so I'm doing a combination of shifts that start very early in the morning and shifts that start quite late at night. I'm also working full time, so I'm actually working 5 days a week, which is an unusual thing for me because I'm used to working long shifts, which meant that generally I would be working 3 days a week, occasionally 4 days a week. That would normally be like once a month that I would do the 4 days, but normally it would be 3. So I'm kind of adjusting to that at the moment. Last weekend we also went out on Sunday morning for breakfast with somebody that I went to school with. He's been out here for a few years and we met up with him and his wife and their baby, who was just born a few months ago. Had breakfast with them and then I was working in the afternoon. There's also been some quite unusual weather out here. It's been warm at times but very windy. There was also quite a lot of rain sometimes, so it's not been ideal weather for filming. There might be some noise going on just now. There's a lot of birds outside, which you might be able to hear in the background, so apologies for that. I am struggling a bit to get decent sound. This room seems to create quite a lot of echo, and like I say, there's a lot of sound that seems to go on around this apartment as well. There's trams that go by fairly close. There are lots of birds nearby, which make a lot of noise. There's rain, there's wind. So I'm kind of contending with a lot of things to make these videos sound good. I'm also having to sit on the floor because I don't have a normal size tripod. I only have my small tripod. So the only place that I can really film at the moment is sitting in here with my tripod sitting on a bedside table. So unfortunately I just have to do the best that I can do with my videos just now. So like I said, I have started work. That's been quite an adjustment for me, and unfortunately it seems to have triggered a lot of problems for me in terms of headaches and migraines. I've suffered really badly from headaches and migraines since I was about 19 years old. They started for me very suddenly out of the blue, and I went from never having had a migraine to suddenly having them all the time. I went through a period, I think it was maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, where I was suddenly having like 2 to 3 full-blown migraines a month that would last anything up to 4 days, and then really bad headaches pretty much every day in between. So it was entirely out of control. And then I had to go and see a neurologist. They decided that I had to be put on medication to prevent these, so I cycled through quite a few different ones, and eventually after, I would say probably a year and a half of trying lots of different ones, I ended up on one called topiramate. So I've been taking that for about 3 years. It generally works well for me. Usually it only stops working for me if I am forgetting to take it. As medication does, it usually stops working for you if you forget to take it, or if my sleeping pattern is disturbed. So if I was working a night shift and then changing very quickly to day shift, then that would kind of trigger off my migraines. But it would usually only result in me getting a migraine for a day or so, and then it would go away and I'd be fine again. So this has been quite unusual for me, that I've started getting really, really bad with them, and I've pretty much had a headache for a week and a half now. And in that time there's been 2 days which have been much more like proper migraines, and I've had to take rizatriptan, which is what I take when I get migraines. So I ended up being sent home from work on Thursday early, and then I was given what they call an accrued day off on Friday, because I haven't accrued any sick time and I haven't accrued any annual leave. So they just gave me this accrued day off, which is what you would generally get over the course of a month, because we work more hours than what you're supposed to do in a month. So you eventually manage to build up a day off. So that wasn't ideal. I had to go to the doctor and speak to them about that. They've increased my dose of topiramate to try and bring the migraines back under control, and I'm hoping that will work, but generally I just haven't been feeling that great, unfortunately. People have suggested that it is stress related. I'm not sure that it is just stress related. I've been under a lot of stress before in terms of my work and in terms of planning everything for moving out here, and I haven't had this reaction before. So I think there's probably a lot more things involved in this in terms of changes to sleeping patterns, eating patterns, the lighting at work, lots of different things involved. And I'm just going to have to try and figure out what things I can control to try and get this back under control again. So that's what's going on with that. As I said, the weather has been very mixed. There's been some very warm days and there's been some fairly cool days. After we had a spell of very warm weather at the end of last week, beginning of this week, there was a thunderstorm. And that caused a lot of problems for people out here in Melbourne because it caused what they refer to as thunderstorm asthma. And there were, I think, something like 2,000 people that ended up calling about their thunderstorm asthma. And a lot of people ended up in hospital. 4 people have unfortunately died from the condition. And a lot more people ended up in intensive care. Basically, thunderstorm asthma is when a lot of pollen gets kicked up by the weather conditions, by the wind, and then when it starts raining, the pollen gets broken down into smaller particles, which means it's easier for you to then breathe into your lungs, and then it causes respiratory problems and can lead to a lot of difficulty with breathing. So it's something that apparently happens out here about once every 5 to 10 years, and it causes a really big problem when it does happen. I suffer from asthma myself, and luckily I was fairly unaffected by it. I did have to use my inhaler a couple of times, but in terms of the effect that it had on a lot of other people, I was fairly okay. But it's something that I'd never really heard of before. I didn't realise that it could actually have that effect on people, and it's kind of scary to know that these kinds of things can happen. In terms of our belongings back in the UK, as far as we know, they are still in the UK, 7 weeks after it actually got picked up from our home. So we have chased that up again. We're trying to find out what's going on with it, whether there's any chance that it's going to get out here by the middle of January, which is when we're supposed to be moving out of this apartment. We've been trying to look more at where we're going to stay longer term, but there's not really a lot that we can do about that until we know whether our belongings are going to get here on time. So we're just trying to chase that up at the moment and find out what's going on with it. Over the last couple of weeks, I've started to notice more Christmas decorations appearing round about the business district. So there's a cafe on Swanston Street, which is actually decorated like an advent calendar, and on the side of it says, "Counting down the days till Christmas." So I'm waiting to see whether that's actually going to be interactive in any way. And I think Myers, which is like the big department store around here in Australia, they've kind of done up all the windows with all these moving displays. There's signs up everywhere saying Merry Christmas, and it just doesn't feel like Christmas at all. I look at all this stuff saying Merry Christmas, and I can register the fact that it says Merry Christmas, but because of the weather, because of the heat, it doesn't feel like Christmas to me at all. And it hasn't really registered in my brain that it's the end of November now. It's less than a month actually until Christmas, and I haven't planned anything about my Christmas shopping for anybody. I haven't written any Christmas cards, even though I probably should, because I'm going to have to get them sent to the UK really quickly. I don't know. I can't quite wrap my head around the fact that it is almost December. And when we met up with David on Sunday last week and his wife, his wife was saying that it never feels like Christmas to her in Australia because of the weather, and when she's having her Christmas dinner, it doesn't feel like Christmas. So yeah, that's it. Anyway, I suppose that's it for my update for these couple of weeks. I don't really have a huge amount to talk about, really just because I've mostly been working. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you next time.